Now in 1.4, the most important thing that you need to remember, and this will be on your quiz and your test, is the order of operations acronym. Okay? That is PEMDAS. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally is the saying that a lot of people memorize when it comes to the order of operations. How does it work? We do what's in parentheses first. Now here's what that means. It means if there is an expression within the parentheses, for example, 2 plus 3 to the second power, and write this example next to when you write parentheses. Okay? It does not mean do what's in parentheses when there's only one number. When there's only one number in the parentheses, that just tells me it's multiplication. So when we say with order of operations, do what's in parentheses first, that's when there's an actual operation within the parentheses. Does that make sense? Okay, because a lot of people get that confused and they mess it up on when we start working through the problems. So when we say do what's in parentheses first, that's when there's an actual operation, addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division that occurs within the parentheses. All right, then we do the exponents. And we learned yesterday what an exponent is. It's just that small number that we raise to a power. And then we multiply and divide, and we add and subtract. And we do those two operations left to right. So get rid of your parentheses, get rid of your exponents, go ahead and evaluate that. And then when all you have is multiplication and division, you work it left to right. Doesn't matter which one comes first, multiplication or division. You go left to right, left to right, and you go left to right when you add and subtract. All right, I'll give you a minute to go ahead and finish copying that down. All right, so keeping that in mind, okay, keeping those steps in mind, what comes first in order of operations, okay, let's look at this word problem. You buy a guitar for $50, you pay $10 a lesson, and you take 5 lessons. How does that work out as an expression? I've written it for you, so you need to write that in your notes underneath example 1, okay? We paid $50, and then we need to figure out if I paid $10 a lesson for 5 lessons, how much total did I pay? All right, order of operations says, what do I do first? Do I add first or do I multiply first? Class? Multiply. You multiply. Very good. So we multiply 10 times 5 and we get 50. And then we add the existing 50 to that, and we know that we paid $100 total. Now say you had just worked left to right. Well, 50 plus 10 is 60, and then 60 times 5 is 300. So what does that tell me? Okay, and this applies to any problem that involves order of operations. If you do not follow the order of operations, you will not get the correct answer. There's no way you can come up with the right answer. You have to follow the order of operations. All right, now in example 2, this is more like what you'll see on a quiz or a test. Okay? All right, so we have to evaluate a variable expression. You might see, hopefully, how we've kind of been building up to this point. All right, in 1.2, we learned about substituting a value for a variable. Okay, remember that in 1.2? And then yesterday, we learned about the exponents and the powers. And now we're kind of putting it together into the order of operations. So we've kind of been building up to this point. So what's the first thing we need to do? We need to plug in the value for the variable and then evaluate. Okay? So 25 goes in for x and 2 goes in for y. When I make my substitution, I have 25 minus 3. How do I show multiplication, class? Parentheses times 2 to the second power. But is there an operation within my parentheses? Is there like a 2 plus anything or a 2 minus anything? No, there's not. So I know that it's just showing multiplication. What do I do first now? According to the order of operations, what do I do first? McKee?
Parentheses.
No, because remember, there's no operation in the parentheses. So what do you technically do first? Justin?
Exponent.
You do the exponent. Very good. So 2 to the second power is what? What's 2 to the second power? That's 4, right? 2 raised to the second power is just like 2 times 2. So that is 4. And then I bring the rest of it down. It's important that you rewrite it, okay? Work one step and then rewrite what's left. Bring everything else down. Okay, now what's my next step? To subtract or to multiply? Class? To multiply. Very good. So then I have 25 minus 12, which gives me 13. All right, now on B, again, we make our substitutions. The first thing we do before we solve is we plug in the numbers for the variable. So 3 goes in for x, so I have 3 squared plus 6 divided by 3. Now this is what we call grouping symbols. We are dealing with groupings when we have an operation on top of another operation. And what I'm talking about is this 3 squared plus 6 up here in the numerator. All right? Now, technically, that whole expression, 3 squared plus 6, is being divided by 3. But first, I need to simplify that. Okay? So you want to simplify everything in the top and everything in the bottom before you actually divide. So 3 squared is what, class? 9. And then we have 9 plus 6 over 3. And then we still continue to simplify to 15 over 3. And now we can divide and we can get 5. All right. Example 3. Now in example 3, we're simply practicing the left to right rule. Okay? So say you're given a problem and the only operations in there are addition and subtraction. You're just going to work left to right, okay? So you're going to start with 12 minus 7 is 5. And then 5 plus 3 is 8. And 8 minus 6 is 2. Okay, so we're just working left to right. 12 minus 7 is 5. 5 plus 3 is 8. 8 minus 6 is 2. And then on letter B, now we're multiplying and dividing. So if you're given a problem with only multiplication and division, you're just going to work left to right. 54 divided by 9 is 6. 6 times 3 is 18. And 18 divided by 6 is 3. And that would be your final answer. Example 4. Okay, now in example 4, we're using these grouping symbols. What do I mean by a grouping symbol? I mean those parentheses that we were talking about. All right, so we have, I'll just do them up here. We have parentheses and we also have what we call brackets, parentheses and brackets. All right, so let's look at letter A. Going back to the definitions, do you see the difference now? What's in parentheses? There's an actual operation in here. All right, there's an 8 minus 5. So since there's an operation within that parentheses, I need to do that first. That's the very first thing that I do, is I do the operation within the parentheses. 8 minus 5 is, class? 3. And then I multiply. 4 times 3 is 12. Okay? Now, on letter B, okay, we talked about this a couple examples ago. Okay? We have operations on top of other operations. So what do we need to do first? Anybody remember what I said? What do we do first? Do we start dividing right off the bat? No, what do we do first, Chris? You need to simplify the top and the bottom. So how would we simplify the top? How do we simplify the top, Kevin? Add 7 to 13, and you get 20. How do you simplify the bottom? Zach? 2 times 5, which is 10. Now we can divide. Okay, so simplify the top and the bottom, then divide. 20 divided by 10 is 2. All right, last but not least, letter C. We have 4 plus 1 raised to the second power times 3. Several different operations here, but what do I do first? According to order of operations, what do I want to do first? What do you think? What do you think? Daniel?
You do what's in the parentheses.
Do what's in the parentheses, which is? You add 4 plus 1. Okay, now I want you practicing rewriting it, okay, which is 5 squared. All right, now what do? Zach?
5 to the second power is 25.
Very good. 5 to the second power is 25, and then we multiply 25 times 3. And what's 25 times 3? Alicia? Very good, 75. I like to think of it like 3/4 is 75 cents. All right, and that's it for example 4. All right, and last but not least, we have a word problem example. Okay, so we need to kind of figure out first what's the topic here. All right, so we want to kind of identify what the topic. What's the topic? Video games, okay? They're playing, what kind of video game are they playing? Skateboarding, okay? Skateboarding video game. And they do some tricks. They do a burn twist. They do 3 backflips. And they do 4 360-degree flips, okay? And they want to know how many points total did this player of this game score, okay? So we can use the order of operations here to solve this. We know that 1 burn twist is how many points? 500. We know that 1 backflip is how many points? How many points is a backflip? 400. How many backflips did they do? 3. So how can I figure that out? How can I write that? 3 times 400. Okay. And then how many 360 flips? Read it. 4. And how many points are a 360 flip? 150. All right. Order of operations says, what do I do first? Do I add or do I multiply? What do I do first? Class?
Multiply.
Tell me. You multiply. Okay, so 1 times 500 is 500. 3 times 400 is 1,200. 4 times 150 is 600. And when you add them all together, you get 2,300 points. All right? So this is a nice little application problem for the order of operations. You might see a word problem or two on your next quiz or test, so it's important that you can kind of figure out what it's asking you to solve for. All right, and if you understand that, that's everything you need to know for 1.4.